let's go over the root causes of brain fog. But first, let's talk about what it feels like. So if we like take a trip back in time to when I was really sick, lupus diagnosis, brain fog was horrendous. I felt like I couldn't focus. I couldn't think straight. Oftentimes there was a huge pressure feeling, and it often felt like I needed to just sleep, like I could not stay awake. And I remember being in a doctor's office at one point and laying down on the floor and going to sleep. I was actually with my niece, and she was getting a diagnosis at the time. And I was still really into modern medicine at this time. And I literally fell asleep on the floor while she was having these tests done. And that brings us to like one of the main causes of brain fog can be a medication side effect. And at the time I was on Effexor because I was diagnosed with bipolar depression at 19, and this drug gave me the worst brain fog zombie side effects that you could ever imagine. So if you are on medication, that really could be one of the causes. And no amount of work you do on the body is going to address those side effects. You will want to work with a practitioner if it is your goal to eventually get off that medication, depending what it is and whether it's needed, whether there is a natural route. You're going to want to address that. Now, the second biggest cause of brain fog is actually going to be a neurotransmitter imbalance. So not having enough dopamine, not having enough serotonin, not having enough glutamic acid, not having enough acetylcholine, all of these things can cause brain fog. And it's the importance of running our genetics and correlating that with an organic acids test to really see what does our brain need to heal. Because if your brain is not balanced, you are not going to feel good. It is like start at the top. This is the most important thing on your body and so overlooked by so many practitioners. Your brain needs to be balanced for you to feel good and for every other function to work in your body. If it's not balanced, nothing is going to work properly. So that is root cause number one that you really want to work on. Now, the second root cause, which we can classify it all under a detoxification issue. There is some toxin causing your brain to not function properly. So common ones are going to be ammonia or oxalates or heavy metals. Some type of toxic burden your body is not detoxifying properly is building up in your system and causing the brain fog. And one of the common ones that I see right now, well, two of them are going to be the ammonia and the oxalates. People are going on these crazy fad diets. They are going low carb. They're adding in all of these, what they call nutrient dense plant foods, which are just high in oxalates, and oxalates are anti-nutrients. So actually no nutrients and not even any carbohydrates. So nothing, it's really a negative food to be eating, but it's been touted as a health food. And so people are going on these diets, they're reducing their carbohydrates, they might be getting rid of gluten flour and adding in almond flour, oxalates. And the other thing that happens too is their sulfur goes up. And a lot of people like myself, I don't do sulfur. I produce too much sulfur on my own, and it overloads my ammonia detoxification pathways. And then my ammonia levels go up. And then you pair that with a pathogen like Lyme or Prevotella or hydrogen sulfide SIBO, and you have ammonia overload. Now, ammonia needs 2 molecules of BH4 to detoxify, and we also need that BH4 to make our neurotransmitters. So when our body is overwhelmed with toxins, then we're not going to have the tools to make our neurotransmitter. So it's technically a neurotransmitter imbalance, but it's caused by an issue with our detoxification pathways. So that's again why we need to run the labs. We need to see all 3 phases of detoxification. What does your body need to detoxify properly? Some people have no problem with sulfur. Some people do. What is it? Well, we don't know until we test. We can go by your symptom brain fog. And as you see, as we're going to keep going over some of these more root causes, how the heck will we know what it is? It could be any of them. It could be all of them, but we need to run the labs. Now, the other thing that can cause brain fog is a mitochondrial dysfunction. And mitochondria are these little organelles in our body that have their own RNA. They're actually, this own symbiotic species that lives with us and makes our energy. It's called ATP. And our body makes energy from carbs fat and protein. And it does, best with actual carbohydrates. But a lot of people, again, are on these fad diets and they're creating a deficiency in a macronutrient. And that's not always the low carb. We see people who are on vegan diets have a lot of issues with mitochondrial dysfunction because they're not giving their body the proper forms of the macronutrients. We need all of them. We really want balance. We don't want to swing one way or the other. We want to find balance and fuel our body. So our mitochondria not functioning properly can definitely be because of the diet that we're eating, but it can also be because of toxins we've put into our body to really disrupt our body's ability to make ATP. So if you remember back to like grade 11 biology, when you're learning about cellular respiration and you're walking through like glycolysis and the Krebs cycle and the electron transport chain, ring a bell, sound fun? But those pathways need to be functioning properly so you can make your ATP. And what's really cool, we can see it on an organic acids test if there is some mitochondrial dysfunction. And no, you don't need to go and learn all about cellular respiration. Again, you can just get the lab and add in support if that is an issue. And, toxin wise, there's a lot of jabba doos that are affecting our mitochondrial RNA. And we want to avoid those like the plague because we cannot change it back. We can definitely support our mitochondria. We can get ourselves feeling a lot better. But the more damage we do to the mitochondria, the harder it is going to be to repair them. Mitochondria not functioning, body not getting ATP, brain not going to feel very good if it doesn't have the energy. Our brain actually uses a ridiculous amount of ATP because we are really smart creatures that think a lot. So those are, just a handful of reasons why you could be having brain fog. Another one could be your cortisol levels. So running a Dutch, checking your adrenals, seeing what your free levels are and your metabolized cortisol levels are. So a lot of times people run like a saliva test or a blood test and their free levels are low, and then they're given like a corticosteroid, which turns off their adrenals. But there was really no issue with their adrenals. Their body was just saying, hey, we're going to take that cortisol, we're going to break it down to cortisone because there's a lot of inflammation going on here, and we need that cortisone to reduce that inflammation. But you don't run the proper testing, you don't get a Dutch, you don't see that, and you actually can compound the issue. So low cortisol is going to feel like heavy brain fog. So these are just a few of the reasons you could be having brain fog. It could also be like circadian rhythm dysfunction. You might be going to bed too late and then waking up too late and your cortisol tanking. So again, it is a cortisol issue. It could be a nutrient deficiency. You're not able to make your neurotransmitters properly. Our neurotransmitters really rely heavily on magnesium and P5P, which is active B6, and zinc. And if you're not getting those proper cofactors on board, then again, more neurotransmitter imbalance. But again, it's coming from a nutrient deficiency. Sadly, our soil just is not what it used to be. When it comes to this monoculture farming, we have severely depleted our soil of nutrients. The nutrient levels in our food are significantly down from 100 years ago. So sadly, we need to supplement those nutrients. Unless you're growing your own food and you know what your soil is and it's like heavy in compost and organic materials, it's likely going to be very depleted. And then when we couple that with the toxic load that our bodies are under, that they were never meant to be under, we're going to really deplete our nutrient levels because all of our detoxification pathways require key vitamins and minerals and amino acids. And if we're not getting that from our diet, then we're not going to be able to function properly, and we are going to have that heavy brain fog. So you definitely do want to clean up your diet. Diet can be contributing if you're eating really crappy processed foods, which, I saved this for last. But most people who are on this journey have already started to clean up their foods, but we need to reduce the toxins in our food. So that's buying farm fresh meat, buying farm fresh eggs, buying raw milk and raw dairy from the farm, finding a source of clean wheat, clean rice, clean oats, and all the no grain, no carb people are going to be like, oh my gosh, But in reality, we have been eating these things for tens of thousands of years with no issue. And it's only in the past, 70, 75 years that people are starting to become intolerant. And it's the chemicals in it. There was a time where I thought I needed to be grain-free, and it really wasn't the grain that was the problem. It was the crap, the artificial flavors, the preservatives, the GMO, the pesticides. That was the problem. And when I cut that out and went to something like einkorn wheat, well, that's totally different. Raw dairy is totally different than conventional dairy. Einkorn wheat is totally different than what you're going to buy at the grocery store. So we want to buy as little food as possible from the grocery store. We want to source out good quality farms. If you can, source out vegetables and fruits that are organically grown, and not even organic, it's more so know the person who's growing it. We just planted 50 fruit trees and have 10 raised garden beds because the reality is that organic foods still have a lot of toxins in them. There's a lot of things that they're allowed organically to put on that food that really is not healthy for us. So the more you can buy locally, get to know the person growing your food, the better it's going to be for your brain, for your brain fog, to reduce those toxins. So if you're looking for a practitioner, you want to get these labs, you want to get custom protocols, go to my website, www.sgintegrativehealing.com, and you can book a health assessment.